Hey, I'm Adam.
And I'm Brian.
Of Everyone Has a Podcast, and you're listening to Pop Goes Your World.
If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes. And while you're there, please leave us a rating and review.
And now it's time for our feature presentation.
I'm Chris McBrien, and the pop culture from Generation X is everything to me.
And I'm Derek Myers, and I'm here to educate Chris on the great pop culture of today's generation.
Episode 229, Movies About Movies or TV. I am Chris McBrien, and that is Derek Myers, and this is Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations. Now, this week, Derek and I are each going to run down our top 5 favorite movies about movies or TV, and we're going to explain that a little bit more when we get into it and set down the parameters for that. But first, what pop culture have you been able to take in this past week, Derek?
Well, I actually found myself glued to my TV this weekend. I don't know why. I mean, I just seem to have a lot of extra time. So I've got a lot of...
Is that unlike any other week, really?
Well, I mean, I think it's partly because we're getting towards the end of summer, and I'm spending fewer of my evenings out by the pool and more of my evenings inside by the TV. Oh. So and because hockey hasn't started, I don't have that as a distraction yet. So true. I had a chance to watch a bunch of things. But before I even get into that, I want to tell you, I had a chance to go and see a concert between the last show and this show.
Who did you go see?
I went to go see 2 great Canadian bands that made it big in the 80s.
Oh, I can't wait.
The Spoons.
Oh, yes. Romantic Traffic.
And nice. Glass Tiger.
Oh, Glass Tiger. They're still... Yeah, I would love to go see Glass Tiger.
Let me tell you, I've been to a lot of concerts, and sometimes you go to a show, and when a band performs live, you really get a sense of how much help they had from the producer, and you realize that what they sound like on the album, what they sound like in real life are in some cases very different. I got to say, whoever was the producer for Glass Tiger had the easiest job in the world because they sounded exactly like the album. All these years later, it sounded perfect. And they put on the show for 90 minutes. They sang every song, all their big hits, and they did a whole bunch of cover songs as well. And it was just a great time. It was at the Outdoor Bandshell here in Toronto at the CNE at the Canadian National Exhibition. Nice. Price of admission to the park got you in to see this show. And it was great to see a couple of local bands from the Toronto area performing, 35 years after they were sort of big. But no, it was a lot of fun, and the crowd was definitely like our demographic. There were not a lot of young people there, but no, it was a lot of fun. It was a great time. So if you're have the opportunity to ever see Glass Tiger perform live, you should go. I think if you're even a marginal fan of the band, you'll be surprised at how good they sound. So I think
a couple of years ago I mentioned to Yancey on this podcast, and I was like, Glass Tiger. He's like, I don't know who the hell that is. And then I made him listen to their big song, Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone. And then he was like, oh, I've heard this before. So I think it's one of those bands that if you're American, you hear the song and you're like, oh yeah, I know these guys. They had some good songs. I liked them a lot.
I had really good time. So, but aside from that, I had a chance to watch some things. So I watched 2 movies and a bunch of documentaries. Let me start with the movies.
Sure.
So the first one is a movie that I want to say was released in theaters around Christmas time and is now available on Crave HBO, and it's called American Underdog. It's about the football player Kurt Warner, who I'm not a football guy, so I didn't know anything about it, but it's this whole story of, he's considered the best undrafted player ever in football, and it's this whole story of all the struggles he had to basically make it into the NFL despite all the hardships and having all this talent. And it was good. I mean, because I don't know anything about him, it was all new to me. But you're not going to make a movie about the guy unless he succeeds in the end. I just had no idea how successful his career actually was until the very end when they start saying like, this is what he accomplished after this movie. And I was like, holy crap. So yeah, it was entertaining. If you like sports movies, it was pretty decent. Like I said, I watched it on Crave here in Canada. I'm pretty sure it's on HBO in the US. So that was the first one. Second one was on Amazon. And let me tell you, Chris, if I told you, or if I asked you to tell me, what is Sylvester Stallone's best movie? What would your answer be?
That's a great question. Rocky 3?
You can go with Rocky 3?
Yeah, I think so.
Well,
I might go with that.
You may want to hold off on that until you see Sylvester Stallone's latest offering. It's a movie on Amazon called Samaritan.
Okay.
And it won't change your mind at all. It was awful. It sucked.
I was gonna say,
It so
better
bad.
than Rocky 3?
No, I was just messing with you. So it's the idea is it's like this superhero movie-ish where at the beginning they talk about like, in our world there were these two brothers who were superheroes, and one was named Samaritan and one was named Nemesis, and they were a good guy and a bad guy, and they had this fight to the death, and 25 years ago they both died in this explosion. And that's when that's sort of the preamble at the beginning. Then the movie's like, okay, now here we are in the modern day, and the story follows this. I think the kid's supposed to be about 13 years old, and he's like one of many people who are like, well, no, I think these superheroes are still alive. They're just in hiding. I think the hero is just in hiding. He's still alive. And it turns out Sylvester Stallone is the hero, and yes, he is in hiding. He's just trying to live a normal life, and he's trying to fly under the radar kind of thing. And of course, the story being the story, he ends up in a situation where it's completely obvious that he's the guy with the superpowers, and then it just becomes an action-packed, shoot him up, punch him up, explosion-y kind of movie. Yeah, not the best thing in the world, but if you want, an hour and 45 minutes of turn your brain off and seeing Sylvester Stallone play a really over-the-hill superhero, it had its moments. It didn't have many of them, but yeah, not going to win any Oscars for this one. Finally, I had a chance to watch not one, not two, but 3 documentaries this week.
For 40 days and 40 nights, he watches documentaries. He likes to learn about the world. It's Derek's Documentaries. Derek's Documentaries.
All right. So all 3 of these are on Netflix, and all 3 of them dropped in the last couple of weeks. So there's a good chance you're probably seeing them show up as, hey, this is something new on Netflix. You should watch it. The first one is about John McAfee. So you're like, hey, that name sounds familiar. Like McAfee anti-software on your computer?
Oh, yes. Okay. Yep.
That's the guy who created that, John McAfee. So he sold the company years and years ago and made billions of dollars, and then became a total nut bar. And so he was so convinced that the weird stuff was happening in his life that he actually brought journalists with him, like photojournalists with him, because he wanted his life documented because strange and weird was happening. And yeah, this movie is bizarre. I didn't know anything about this guy, and the first hour is pretty interesting. They explain like who he is and why the film crew's there, and some of the crazy shenanigans that happen. He's wanted by various governments for all sorts of bizarre crimes. There's a murder that happens where he's like a suspect, so he flees a country illegally, and he's like buying off police officers, but he's still like a gifted computer guy, so he's like hacking into like government databases to get information so he can blackmail people so he doesn't have to go to jail. It's just, what the hell? First hour is like, where is this going? The second hour was garbage. It tanked so bad. I was so disappointed with the end of this. I mean, when you base it on a real life thing and you're doing a documentary, you don't have the luxury of making up the story. You have to just go where the story brings you. Unfortunately, the second half of this story is garbage. The first half is like, it's like a train wreck. You have to watch it because you're like, this is both disturbing and fascinating at the same time. But the second half was a huge letdown, in my opinion. Anyway, I didn't care for the ending. It's what do they say? The candle that burns twice as bright burns half as long. Oh boy, he did definitely half as long. But yeah, it's on Netflix, called Running with the Devil: The Wild World of John McAfee. I didn't care for it. Like I said, the first hour was interesting, and then there's sort of a clear division. Like it's sort of like an A story and a B story, and the B story takes place like 7 or 8 years later. If you're interested in this, I would just watch up to that part. And then when they're like, okay, 7 years have passed, just stop watching. Like you don't need it. Whatever you think is going to happen, you're probably 100% correct, and it's going to be boring. You're going to waste an hour of your life. So can't give that one the thumbs up. The other 2 were both sports documentaries, and they're part of a series on Netflix called Untold. And the first one, I can't remember. I may have even talked about this last week. The first one I watched was called The Rise and Fall of And One. Did we talk about this last week, Chris?
No.
Okay. So this is about these. Actually, both these documentaries are about basketball. And you know me, I'm not a basketball guy at all. Yet here I am talking about a football movie and a basketball documentary. So And One was a brand of basketball wear. It started off as like apparel, like T-shirts with like, you know, trash talk sayings on them. And then they expanded into sneakers and other things. They got celebrity endorsements. They started doing basketball tournaments. And the idea was that their players and the people that they were trying to appeal to were like street ball players. Like they were like hustlers. Like they were guys who were just as interested in the finesse and the showmanship as the skill of the game. And it was interesting because it was a direct competition to the NBA. The NBA was all about perfection. You want the best guys doing the best things, whereas these guys were more about putting on a show.
These guys were more like basketball.
Well, maybe not that much of a show, but anyway, it was quite interesting. It talked about like how these guys, you know, sort of the overnight success story. They had this interesting idea. They got right place, right time. They managed to get the right people. They fell into some happy accidents where the things they planned didn't work the way they wanted to. So their backup plan ended up actually being more successful than their primary plan, just through total fluke. But it was quite good. And of course, like so many of these stories, people got greedy, the money got in the way, and the whole thing fell apart by the end. And no, it was very good, very entertaining. Again, I didn't know anything about it at all. So it's called The Rise and Fall of And One. The second sports documentary I just watched it this afternoon, or well, tonight. It's called Operation Flagrant Foul. And it was about an NBA basketball referee who was betting on the games while he was reffing.
Oh, God.
And he's saying that he wasn't throwing the games, and his stats would lead you to believe that he wasn't, because they, like, at one point they say there were 60 referees in the league that year, and all the refs get scored. Like, think like mystery shoppers that watch the games and judge the referees to make sure the refs are making good calls, and if they're not, they get new referees. And he was number 3 out of 60 for making the right call at the right time in the right game. So like he was saying, like, hey, if I was throwing the games, why is it that there were only 2 refs better than me out of 60 in the entire season? Like, come on.
But still, you're an NBA ref. Don't bet on the games.
Oh, and they're totally were not allowed to.
No.
But what he was doing was he had access to inside information that in today's day and age, everyone would have access to. But at the time, it was things like he knew that a certain coach and a certain referee had gotten into a fight at a bar the night before. So the next day, the referee was going to give that coach's team a hard time and call a whole bunch of fouls that maybe would normally not call as often. Or, you know, he would know about like things like that, like personal issues, personal problems. He would hear like just before a game, oh, this team, half the people on the team have the flu, so they're not going to be playing as well. And so he was like calling his bookies and calling the guys who were making the bets and saying like, you need to bet on this team tonight for whatever reason. And I think they said in the one year he did his bet, he bet on like 50 or 60 games, and he had an 80% winning percentage, like 79 point something. And it's like, that's unheard of. So anyway, sort of spoiler, not so spoiler. I mean, they wouldn't do the documentary if they didn't, but everyone got caught in the end, and a whole bunch of people went to jail, and you know, some people got fined, some people didn't, some people got off that you may not expect, and some people didn't. It's an interesting look at this, and knowing where sports gambling is now and how prevalent it is and how big a part of the revenue stream it is for all professional sports, especially basketball, you got to wonder how things would have played out today if this had come to light instead of, say, you know, 10 years ago. But yeah, quite good. So the 2 documentaries I would definitely recommend are part of the Untold series on Netflix. The first one, The Rise and Fall of And One. The second one is Operation Flagrant Foul. Both excellent. The John McAfee one, Running with the Devil, 2 thumbs down. Don't waste your time on it.
Interesting. Okay, I got a couple things for you. I added a couple of items to my pop culture collection in the past little while. So one was I was able to get my hands on, and we went to this, my family and I went to this, like, it was like a little candy store kind of, and they had some like pop culture stuff in there. And one of the things that they had was an unopened wax pack of collector cards from E.T., the extraterrestrial from 1982. So I bought this pack of cards.
How much did they charge you for it?
It was
ridiculous amount?
$5.
Oh, geez, that's
$5.
nothing.
I'm like, oh my God, I have to buy this. So I bought it. And then, of course, I get home, and then my youngest son says to me, all right, let's open it. I'm like, no, I'm not going to open it. He's like, why not? You want to see the cards inside? I'm like, no, I'm not going to open it. The whole point is that it's closed. That's what makes it collectible. No one's opened this yet. Although I'm tempted now because I really want to get the gum.
I was just about to say, does it have gum in there?
Yeah, so there's that. And then the other thing was, I took my youngest son too to this there was this event that goes on locally, and they have like a lot of vendors and stuff like that. And one of the vendors had all these like collectibles, but it was mainly like Pokemon cards. That's what my youngest son loves, collecting these Pokemon cards. So we go there, and he's looking at all these Pokemon cards, and I'm over in the corner. I'm like, oh, I found something for Daddy. And it was the complete set of 11 stickers from the 1976 Happy Days trading card set.
Oh, nice.
So I got it for $10. So he's like, yeah, you can just, $10. That's all I want for those. You can just take them. I'm like, nice. Oh my God. Like Fonzie's on all of them. Like, it's just so cool. So I was really happy. So they're both over on my shelf, and you have helped me over the years add to my collection over there. I remember last year you and my one son went and got me the Bosk figure from The Empire Strikes Back, and I've got, of course, Bespin Luke and like the Cylon Raider and all this other stuff going on over there. So anyway, I just wanted to mention this is what I do. I don't watch anything new on Netflix. I just do these kind of crazy things. So I do that. Oh, another thing that I do is this.
Here's your dad joke of the week.
Derek, did you hear that the movie Titanic turned 25 this year?
I did not hear that, no.
At 25 years old, Leonardo DiCaprio no longer wants to.
Not cool, man. This is a little more Chris's documentaries than Derek's documentaries.
Was I in it? Like, did they feature me in it?
I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, and I don't normally talk about things I haven't seen.
Did they go like local celebrities or something like that?
Well, I think it's going to be kind of laughably bad.
Have you seen my old TV show? But that was as old school as you can get.
I'm not really holding out hope that it's going to be awesome.
Good luck on that one.
If I really want to understand Chris and who he is, I need to watch this documentary.
If you really want to understand me, go back and watch like WKRP in Cincinnati.
Just a little comment on that drop. I tell you what, if you really want to understand me, Derek, okay, I just want you to put things in perspective. Tell me that something, happened 30 years ago. Okay, my mind automatically goes to 1970. And then you're like, no, it's 1992. I'm like, oh my God. And I just like am miserable for the rest of the day. That's how you understand me. That's how my mind operates. I think like 30 years was the 70s. So, okay. So this week's topic, we're doing a top 5 list. We're going to go from our top 5 up to our top 1. We're going to in reverse order, of course, like we do, of our favorite movies about movies or TV. So maybe we should explain this a little bit, because you and I, we didn't really set any parameters on this. We just said, hey, let's just talk about movies that are about movies or TV. And like, okay. So really, like, for my take on it was like, I wanted to kind of go with movies that were like about making movies or about making TV shows, sort of thing. That's kind of the approach that I took on it. And there's quite a few movies about that. Did you take the same tack on it?
Yeah, I have one that might sort of just sidestep that a tiny bit, but I've been thinking about how to bring it back to the thesis statement. But yeah, that was definitely where I went.
I left out 2, and we don't know each other's lists as we're coming into this. We always come in blind, but I left out 2. So I left out King Kong. I mean, it didn't quite fit the bill for me, even though it's one of the greatest films ever made. The 1933 one I'm talking about, not that 1976 one with Jeff Bridges and Jessica Lange. But because like in the movie, like they're going out to kind of make a movie about this island, and then they kind of stumble along it. But to me, it just didn't quite fit. And the other one that I was going to do, it was originally on my list and I got rid of it, was Wayne's World. Because in Wayne's World, as much as I like that movie, the 2 characters doing this kind of local cable access show is just kind of a small part of what they do. So I ended up leaving it off the list. But, okay, so we're going to start at our number 5 and work our way up to number 1. And you get to kick things off. So what's your number 5 movie that's about movies or TV?
So before I jump into my list, let me give you a couple of caveats. So again, I didn't know what your list was going to look like, but knowing you, I figured it was going to be a lot of older movies. And I find that we don't give the 90s enough love on this show, and that may be something we have to remedy in next season. But for now, I put my list together, and I had a lot of movies on the list. And when I started narrowing it down, I realized most of the ones I wanted to talk about all fell into the 90s. So I ended up finding what I think are five great picks from the 90s. So all five of mine are going to be in the 90s. And I don't really have a preference of the order. This isn't where we're saying number one is my favorite or number one is the best. So I'm just going to go through them in the order they were released, with the oldest one to the newest one. But with that caveat, one of the movies that did make my short list but didn't make my list is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that came out just in the last couple of years, Quentin Tarantino. Yeah. I only had a chance to see it the one time in the theater. I liked it. I felt it was really long, but I the more I thought about it, the more I realized that, I think it's got a lot of value if I was to go back and see it. But that follows Leonardo DiCaprio's character through his career as a movie star. So again, that would sort of fit into this category, but I just felt it was a little too new, and I didn't have enough distance from it yet to really feel if it would make the list in the way I wanted it to. So I want to just let the listeners know I thought about it, I considered it, and that's I'm not putting it on the list, but this is one of those ones where I actually did see the movie and I'm not leaving it off because I forgot about it or had not seen it. So that being the case, I'm going to jump right into my list. So my first movie is from 1992, and it's called The Player, starring Tim Robbins. Have you seen The Player?
I have not seen The Player.
Really? Wow. Okay, so it's directed by Robert Altman, the great Robert Altman, and I'll just read a little IMDb blurb here. It's Hollywood studio executive is being sent death threats by a writer whose script he rejected, and it's this sort of murder mystery that's playing out in Hollywood behind the scenes, and you have this executive played by Tim Robbins, who is still going about his day-to-day job, and he's going to all these meetings like a movie executive would in the 90s. And one of the things, this movie has a lot of things that it's well known for. One is that it has something like 60 cameos from real Hollywood people playing themselves. The idea is that it's like actually taking place in the here and now. So you've got this ridiculous amount of celebrity cameos who are in it for very small bits and pieces, playing themselves exactly like they are in real life. Like, you could argue they're not actually acting, they're just on there being there. But this also has it's well known because the opening shot of the film is like a continual shot that runs like 3 or 4 minutes. And again, it's one of these ones where we often talk about how Raiders of the Lost Ark is a good example by Steven Spielberg of a master basically showing you how to make a movie, how to set pacing, how to tell a story. This is a master director at the top of his game with Robert Altman, showing off the fact that he can do this where most directors can't. He's got this amazingly long, nonstop, one shot, one take. I'd probably had to do many takes, but it's just this long continuous shot at the beginning, and it's back and forth, and people are walking in and out, and you're following different people at different parts of their conversation. I'm also surprised you haven't seen this because Fred Ward plays a very large part in this film. And I know how much you love him. We know him from Remo Williams, yeah. So, but it's I actually had to watch this movie at university in one of my film classes. That was the first time I ever saw it. I mean, I'm a big fan of Tim Robbins. I mean, most people know him from The Shawshank Redemption, in which he is fantastic. But this came out a couple of years before that one did, and it really gives you a glimpse of sort of the behind the scenes, how movies are made, but not necessarily the how do you shoot the movie as much as it's the business side of how a movie is made, all the goings on and the backroom dealings and we'll do this for you if you do this for us, the deal making and the swindling and all that stuff. Again, it takes place in 1992, the year it was made. So it's some of the things that are happening in this movie are clearly going to seem dated at this point, just because the world has changed a lot since then. But unfortunately, a lot of things are going to be very much the same because there's always going to be those sort of backroom deals where money talks and experience matters and who you know. And so The Player, you want to get an idea of how Hollywood works behind the scenes, or at least how it did in the 90s? Watch The Player.
All right. Probably no surprise. The majority of my movies will all take place before 1989. But one of
Not a surprise at all.
Shocking. I know. But what my number 5 is actually a quote unquote newer movie. I call it a newer movie. It came out in 2008, and that's Tropic Thunder. I know it's a little bit out of my wheelhouse when it comes to movies, obviously, but it's directed by Ben Stiller. And if you haven't seen it, it's about these actors that are making a movie about the Vietnam War. And then like the movie goes over budget, and like the studio's pissed because they're not getting enough dailies back, and there's not a lot of progress in the movie. So they decided to take these actors and they drop them in a jungle, and then they film them. But the problem is that the area that they go into, there's like a drug cartel like in the area. So they start getting like really shot at. Like one of them steps on a mine. Like it's all this craziness, right? But my favorite part is there's these two actors that are basically unrecognizable in their roles. So first is Tom Cruise. He plays this kind of overweight, balding producer. He's like yelling and screaming, just chewing up the scenery in his scenes. Like it's really, really good. But the other one and the best is Robert Downey Jr. So have you seen this movie?
Oh yeah.
So he plays this method actor, Kirk Lazarus. And this actor always like gets right into his roles, right? So in this movie, he's supposed to play an African-American man. So he gets this skin pigmentation like done to himself, and he like talks in like this African-American vernacular. My God, it's like he's completely unrecognizable. And he was nominated for a Best Supporting Actor Academy Award for this movie. But the scene I like is when he's talking to Ben Stiller about how Ben Stiller played a mentally challenged character in his previous movie. It was called Simple Jack. And it's really offensive.
Oh, yes.
And Robert Downey Jr.'s speech in this scene, it's one of those things that I think if you were a writer and wrote this scene and then watched it play out, you would just be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he did this. The first time I saw that scene, I almost fell off my chair. Let's just say it's not repeatable, okay?
No, it'd be a lot of bleeps if we tried to repeat it here.
But you know, the thing is with me, Derek, I always like to incorporate little quotes for movies when I'm talking with my kids. I always do this. Okay, don't worry, this isn't going where you think it's going to go. But we were playing bingo a little while ago, and then I win with my kids. I get a straight line in bingo when I win, and I yell bingo. And my youngest son is like, no, I don't want to. Let's just keep going. Let's play full card. And I'm like, just without missing a beat, I'm like, you never go full card. You go home empty-handed. And of course, he doesn't have any idea what I'm talking about, right? And it's like this little inside joke of myself. I really need to get out more. That's what I think. So anyway, my number 5 movie that's about a movie or TV is Tropic Thunder. And even though it takes place after 1989, I enjoyed it quite a bit. So that's
it was good. I remember I've actually ever seen it the one time in the theater, and I do remember enjoying it a lot. I remember they had trailers in the movie for other movies that those performers were in. Like I think they were going to the premiere at the end, and it's like, you know, coming soon, and that those trailers were gold. It was very much the same thing Tarantino did with his the Death Proof, and I can't remember I can't remember what the other movie was. I'm blanking on it, but where he had a bunch of fake trailers in the middle. Same idea. So no, it was good. I do remember. We'll have to watch that one again soon.
Yeah. Okay, so your number 4.
My number 4.
Movie about movies or TV.
Yeah. So this we go from 1992 with the last one to 1995 with this one, and it is Get Shorty. So this stars, this is a big cast, it's big pedigree on it. Gene Hackman, John Travolta, Rene Russo, Danny DeVito, James Gandolfini. It's written by Elmore Leonard. Elmore Leonard is a very successful novelist. He wrote Rum Punch, which was turned into the movie Jackie Brown. He did, obviously, this one. He did Out of Sight, which they turned into a movie with George Clooney, which we've actually done on this podcast. He wrote the 3:10 to Yuma, which was a Western, or he at least had a writing credit on it. I don't know if he actually wrote it, but and he's the writer behind the TV series Justified. So he's got a lot of pedigree, and it was directed by Barry Sonnenfeld, who probably is most well known for directing the Men in Black films. And this one is about John Travolta's character is a mobster named Chili Palmer, and he comes to Hollywood to basically because he's on the run, and he meets Gene Hackman's character, who's like I think he's a producer, and so he passes himself off as a screenwriter, and he says, "Yeah, I'm a screenwriter. I'm here in Hollywood." And he goes, "Oh, well, what are you working on?" So he starts pitching this idea, and it's really just his life. And Gene Hackman's character is like, "Oh, this is fascinating. Well, you have a lot of talent as a screenwriter. Like, where does it go next?" He's like, "Well, I don't know. Let's meet tomorrow and I'll tell you." And basically, as the movie's playing out and things are happening to his character, he's constantly reintroducing those things as what's happening next in the story he's trying to tell. And it's a very interesting, and I mean, farcical, humorous way of looking at how movies are written, because obviously I don't think many movies are written in this exact way, but just the idea that a screenwriter is obviously going to draw from their own life experience. That's, I took creative writing in school, and that's always the first thing they say. Write what you know, draw from your own personal experiences, and go from there. And so this is an example of a movie about a movie where it's, this guy is pitching this screenplay in real time as it's happening. And the real payoff, I mean, the movie came out in 95, so hopefully this isn't a spoiler, but the real payoff is by the end of the movie, they have actually shot the movie. So you see the ending of Get Shorty twice. You see it once with the characters we've come to know, and then they show it again with the actors they've cast in those roles, finishing in the same thing, because it's a repeat of what's happened in real life. It was a real clever way to sort of put a bow on it at the end, but it was good. I would highly recommend this one if you haven't seen it. It's got humor, it's got action, it's definitely got that Elmore Leonard stamp. If you've seen some of his other works and you had a good time with those, you probably like this one. And this is John Travolta coming off of Pulp Fiction, so it's like he's sort of just getting his juice back. And no, it's good. And it's my number 4 pick, Get Shorty.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Travolta, he was sort of in no man's land there for a while, doing those like Look Who's Talking movies and stuff, and then Pulp Fiction brought him right back, and that's one of the big things that made this movie successful at the time too. Okay, my number 4, Amazon Women on the Moon. Okay, stick with me on this one, Derek, okay? I don't think a lot of people know about this movie, but I think those that do know this movie, they know that it's amazing. So don't let the title throw you, okay? The movie is basically about what it was like to flip through the channels late at night back in the 1980s. There's these commercials, there's late night movies, Amazon Women on the Moon from the title. It was like this sort of make-believe movie that they come across starring Steve Forrest. It's got an old black and white movie. It's got Son of the Invisible Man, where Ed Begley Jr. thinks he's invisible, but he really isn't. And so he like strips his clothes off and he runs around naked, and everyone, he thinks everyone can't see him and they can see him. He's like, ever see a shirt? Make a phone call. It's like, so they're like, oh, it's the Invisible Man again. Great. And then Arsenio Hall is in this crazy opening sequence. It's great. There's soap operas in it. There's like these condom commercials. It's crazy, but it's really, really, really good. And the segments are all directed by different directors. There's like Joe Dante does one, and Carl Gottlieb. There's a ton of actors in it, like Rosanna Arquette and Carrie Fisher, Joe Pantoliano, Michelle Pfeiffer. I think it's one of those hidden gem movies that you really have to give it a try. I think you'll be surprised by how much you like it. So Amazon Women on the Moon, something you maybe have never even heard of. Those of you out there that are listening that have seen this movie, you know what I'm talking about. And it's all about like flipping around TV late at night. It is awesome. So that's my number 4.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
It's so good.
Was it in any way involved with or part of the Zaz group, the Zucker, Abrams, and Zucker?
No. I say, it was all like a bunch of different directors that all did the segments, and like Peter Horton from like 30 something and stuff, he was directed and acted in it. Like it was just a whole bunch of mishmash of all these things, but it was just great. I loved it.
I think it might be in my mind mixing it up with Kentucky Fried Movie.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Okay. My number 3. Yeah. So again, we're going to go from 95 to 1997. You ever wonder how pornographic films are made? Well, we watched Boogie Nights in 1997 and we found out. This is one of my all-time favorite movies, makes my top 20 all-time favorite movie list. The ranking will change depending on the day of the week, but we've talked about this a few times before. So this is a story that takes place over about 10 years, from sort of the mid to late 70s to the mid to late 80s. And it follows the story of Dirk Diggler, played by Mark Wahlberg, who's this young kid who basically breaks into the adult film business. Burt Reynolds plays Jack Horner. Burt Reynolds nominated for an Academy Award for his role in this. Regrettably did not win. His character is the producer, director, writer of these adult films, and Mark Wahlberg and this amazing cast of performers: Julianne Moore, Louise Guzman, John C. Reilly, Don Cheadle, William H. Macy, Heather Graham. Like, this is a who's who. This is the level of talent in this film is fantastic. They take the material very seriously. There is a tremendous amount of nudity in this, as you would expect with a movie that's about adult films. They don't shy away from that. They show the highs and the lows. They show the problems these people have. They show them the rampant drug use that's going on, the violence that comes with a lot of this, and it follows it through the transition of adult movies from being shot like a real movie would on reel to reel and shown in a theater to converting to videotapes and moving to the home system and away from like old school, porno houses. It's a fascinating look at a very specific point in history when adult films, obviously we still have, I don't know if we call them films, but pornography is still available, but just the way it was treated, handled, accepted, not accepted, the taboo around it. It's explored in a very respectful way here in this film. Like I said, the performances were great. It's written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. This movie has a tremendous pedigree, and it's great. And I'd be shocked if I'd be shocked if any of the listeners haven't seen this before. But if you haven't seen this before, as long as nudity isn't going to put you off, you need to watch this movie. It is long. It's 2.5 hours, which sometimes on a rewatch you're like,
it is long.
Let's do half today and half tomorrow kind of thing. But no, it's fantastic, and it gives you that real inside look. I mean, I don't know how accurate it is. I got to think it's pretty accurate. From what I know of Paul Thomas Anderson, he does his homework as a writer to make sure the details are correct. And given the fanfare around this movie when it came out in '97, I think if it was full of baloney, we would have heard about it when it came out. I don't think it would have been the success it was. And I mean, I believe it was nominated for a bunch of Oscars. I can't remember. Was it nominated for Best Picture? It was not nominated for Best Picture. Burt Reynolds for Best Supporting Actor, Julianne Moore Supporting Actress, and Best Writing, Paul Thomas Anderson. So that's my third pick here, Boogie Nights from 1997.
I like how you described the movie as being long, especially the final scene.
Yeah. I have a dirty joke about that, but we're not going to talk about that here.
Yes, of course. Okay, so my number 3, I'm going to go with a movie called S.O.B. Okay, so back in 1981, Blake Edwards, he was the director of Breakfast at Tiffany's, and he also directed The Party and the Pink Panther movies back in the 70s. Well, right. But outside of those movies, Edwards had a bit of a rough go of things with Hollywood, especially with the studio system back in the 70s. He had a lot of issues getting his personal films made that he wanted to do. And then the ones that he did, like Darling Lily in 1970, they just flopped, right? So in 1981, he made this movie, S.O.B., about making a movie in Hollywood. And in it, Richard Mulligan plays a director, and he's married to Julie Andrews. And they make this kids musical together called Night Wind, and it just flops, right? So he decides to go back and remake it as a softcore porn movie. Now, keep in mind, Julie Andrews was Blake Edwards' real-life wife, right? And she was obviously known for making kids movies, throughout her career. So this movie kind of mirrored reality to a degree. It's kind of semi-autobiographical in a way. So in the movie, they redo Night Wind, and in the final scene, Julie Andrews does a topless scene. This movie, I think, is very polarizing. I know people that like it, and I know plenty of others that just hate it. I'm in the former group. I mean, I like this movie. I think it's good. And it's got a boatload of actors at the time, like Larry Hagman, and there's Robert Preston and William Holden and Robert Vaughn. And they all, in a lot of ways, kind of play various caricatures of themselves. It's a satire of the Hollywood movie industry. And of course, you get to see the actors from The Sound of Music do something completely out of character, to say the least. So that's my number 3 movie. about movies or TV. So what's your number 2?
I was going to say, I've never seen it. I've never even heard of it. So here we are. Okay. So we've talked a lot about movies. I'm going to talk one about television. This is my only one about TV. And again, it's sort of a sidestep. It's from 1998 and it's called The Truman Show. Jim Carrey.
Yes.
So for those maybe who haven't seen it or are unfamiliar with it, the idea is that Jim Carrey has lived his whole life under a microscope, and his entire life from the day of his birth right up till the time the movie starts has been filmed as a reality TV show, except he is unaware that he lives in a reality TV show. Everything about his life is artificial. Every person he has ever interacted with is an actor. There are cameras in every single room that he ever goes into. People, as he grows up and the technology improves, the cameras get smaller. They can put more cameras in more places so that absolutely none of his life is missed for even a second. Even people they have a dedicated channel just called The Truman Show, and it just runs nonstop. So if you want to, in the middle of the night, turn it on and watch him sleeping, go for it. And the whole thing is that it has never gone off the air. And the premise of the movie is he starts to realize that something's off very early in the movie, and then as he becomes more aware that, hey, my life is artificial, shenanigans happen. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic movie, and it makes fantastic commentary about television and camera and voyeurism and all the things and being watched and the rights around that, or not, privacy and all that stuff. But from the point of view of how it relates to what we're talking about, you do see a tremendous amount of behind the scenes in the context. Like, it's the show within the show kind of thing. Like the Truman Show television show is still happening in the movie as we watch it. And we get to see sort of how the sausage is made. In some scenes, as Truman becomes less predictable because he starts to realize that his life is not what he expects, the performers and the people that are making the show have to really, tap dance around things to try and keep up the facade. And I think this movie, the timing was excellent because it was only, it was around this time or like within a year or two that reality TV started to really take off. And this basically was an example of like how extreme reality TV can be. And so I think that this fits into our category about, movies are about movies or TV. Not that it's showing you a real TV show, but I got to think that if we are not already here, we are very close to being here. It's almost a cautionary tale now that so many people put so much of their life on the internet, maybe not TV anymore, but on the internet, that we are a society of voyeurs. We want to watch other people doing the most mundane things, brushing their teeth, going to work, sleeping. Like, these aren't, he's not an athlete, he's not a superhero, he's just a regular guy, and people are fascinated by just being able to watch him. So that's my number 2 pick, The Truman Show.
And that was 97, right? That came
98.
1998, which is interesting because that was a couple years before reality TV really took off, because it was really 2000 with like Survivor and stuff when it took off. So it definitely was ahead of its time. And the other thing, like you touched base on, I think is important there, is just how much reality TV is just manipulated. It's not really reality TV. It's all manipulated for the cameras and stuff like that. And I definitely agree. It's more of a cautionary tale. That's a good pick. I like that one.
I assume you've seen this movie?
Yes.
Have you seen it recently?
No, I watched it way back in the day.
Yeah, we may have to revisit this one in the not too distant future.
It might be interesting to see how it plays now in today's world.
Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting you mentioned that because we kind of lumped this all together. We didn't decide to go movies about movies and then do another show on movies about TV. We lumped them kind of together, and that's your only pick that has about movies about TV. My top 2 are both about TV. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So this is the way I'm going to go with it. My number 2, boy. Okay, so it's called Tunnel Vision. All right. So it's a TV parody from 1976. It was directed by Neil Israel. And he directed movies like Bachelor Party and Moving Violations. Remember that one, Derek?
Moving Violations. I've definitely seen that.
Oh, he also paired up with Pat Proft, and they wrote Real Genius. That's a personal favorite movie.
Which I enjoyed. Yeah.
So back in 1976, though, he made Tunnel Vision. So one thing about me, I was always a huge fan of the underground comedy movement back in the 70s. It was really the foundation of the American comedy scene in the late 70s and the early 80s. Like, there was National Lampoon's Lemmings, and there was Second City in Chicago, and there was underground films like you mentioned, a Kentucky Fried Movie, like that. And they were all part of that whole comedy scene at the time. But one of my favorites was Tunnel Vision. So I got a lot to talk about this one. So have you ever seen it, or have you ever heard of it?
I've never even heard of it. No.
Okay. So it's basically, the premise is it's about this TV station that has, and again, it came out in 76, but it takes place in 1985. So the premise is, in 10 years, like, there's just going to be less censorship. So the idea is it's a TV station that has zero censorship. Okay. So what it does is it just puts out the most offensive, vile programming you can ever imagine. And it's got actors in it like Howard Hessman is in it, and Chevy Chase, and Al Franken, and Tom Davis. But the two things I like the most about it, there's these... Okay, so there's this fake TV show that they show. It's a sitcom called Ramon and Sonia, and it's got Lorraine Newman from Saturday Night Live, and Ira Miller plays Ramon, and they're this like vile, disgusting couple. And I remember the theme song was like Ramon and Sonia and the rest of their disgusting family. Ding, 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 like a typical kind of sitcom thing. But then it's like Ramon gets home from working in a cab all day, and then she's like, "Oh, what happened today?" And I cannot repeat what he says. Like, it's just not even with the censor beep. It's just so offensive. And the wife is a prostitute, and so is the daughter. And then they make fun of about like 10 different groups, in a span of about 4 minutes. So I'm not saying I approve of any of this. That's not the case. But I've always mentioned I like pop culture that pushes the envelope. Mm-hmm. And the premise is basically, what could be the most offensive thing that you could ever think of in your life? And that's what this is. It's on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and you search Ramon and Sonia, Tunnel Vision, I cannot repeat a single word of the dialogue. But it's like the most offensive stuff ever put on film. It's just crazy. But then later in the movie Tunnel Vision, there's a movie trailer that they show, and it's for a movie called Get Head. It's not what you think, though. So it's about this cop that gets blown up, and then the doctors save the only part of his body that survives, his head. So he's this like disembodied head. And I remember like years later, they did a sketch on In Living Color, where Damon Wayans... Oh,
the head detective?
Yeah, head detective. Yeah, I remember that one. But Tunnel Vision did it first. They were definitely inspired by Tunnel Vision when they did that. So it was called Get Head, and John Candy is in it. Okay, so he was at the time an unknown improvisational actor from Second City in Toronto back in 76. And he plays the cop's partner. And then he goes around carrying this hat box everywhere, and then he opens it up, and the inside is David Lander's head. So David Lander's the guy that played Squiggy on Laverne and Shirley. Okay. So he's the head inside, and then together they like fight crime. But overall, like it's as far as subversive comedy goes, like that underground movement back in the 70s, it was really, really key. And Tunnel Vision for me was one of the best parts of that comedy movement. So not a lot of people know about this one, but it is something else. Let me tell you, go to YouTube and look up Ramon and Sonia from Tunnel Vision, and like just be prepared to be offended. It's almost like they said, okay, we have 4 minutes. Let's see how many people we can offend in 4 minutes. Okay, go. Tick, tick, tick. It's just like crazy. Anyway, wow. So it was like I say, a part of that whole movement. So I feel it deserves to be talked about.
Well, I'm a little surprised this didn't show up on my Netflix account. Netflix thinks you might like Tunnel Vision.
I don't know where it would be available. I don't know. So so your number one movie about movies or TV?
All right. Again, as I said, this isn't in any particular order other than there's chronological, but this one is a very strong, and it is from 1999, Bowfinger, starring Eddie Murphy and Steve Martin. And so, Chris, have you seen Bowfinger?
I have not. No.
It's directed by Frank Oz. You know who Frank Oz is?
I like Frank Oz.
He's the voice of Miss Piggy, Cookie Monster. He was the voice of Yoda. He's directed a lot of great movies as well. It was written by
he directed Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah. The movie was written by Steve Martin, and it also stars, in addition to Steve Martin and Eddie Murphy, it stars Heather Graham and Christine Baranski. Terrence Stamp has it. Robert Downey Jr. is in it a little bit. It's the idea is that Steve Martin is a writer, producer, director trying to I think they've established that he has had success in the past and has fallen on hard times, is trying to figure out how to get back into the game, and nobody's taking him seriously. And and then he decides to basically fake a movie. He's trying to get Eddie Murphy's character is like a really big star, and he's like, oh, this movie would be perfect with him. And he's like, well, what if we shoot the movie, all the peripheral scenes, and then we basically just ambush Eddie Murphy's character, like sort of in real life, and like film around him, so he doesn't even need to know he's in the movie, but we'll put him in the movie, and hilarity ensues. This is a great movie. I haven't seen it in a while, but I've seen it a handful of times. It's quite good. And one of the really interesting sort of side plots that's happening is Heather Graham. Her character comes in at the beginning. They basically, it's sort of like one of those 80s sex comedies where it's like, oh, we need a girl who's basically just going to be here, look pretty, and take her shirt off. And that's kind of role that they're casting for. So they bring on Heather Graham. And when she first comes in, she doesn't really know a lot about how movies are made. So she starts, being affectionate to the screenwriter. And she's like, oh, why don't you write me into more scenes? And he's like, oh, I'll do what I can. I do what I can. Right. And she's making out with him. And then when she realizes, well, even if he writes her into scenes, it's not up to him whether the scenes get put in. So they're like, well, now what do you do? And then they're like, well, the star has more input. Okay, so then she starts to hook up with the star of the movie. Oh, well, he doesn't have as much input. You really need to get to the director. Okay, then she hooks up with the director. And it's like, oh, well, he has the most input. So you get this sort of satirical and cautionary tale about like some of the behind the scenes things and how things work. And it sort of falls back to what I started with The Player, where you sort of get to see how the sausage is made. You get to see the things that need to get done in order to have a movie get made. And in this case, it's this sort of guerrilla style shooting of the movie where we don't have really any money. We don't have any permission. The star of our movie doesn't even know he's in the movie. We're just going to do what we need to do and hope that we can put a movie together by the end. And when you get Steve Martin and Eddie Murphy together, you're going to have some funny stuff in it. And this movie's great. I love it. And it's the number one. Simply, it's number one because I think it's great, but it's also number one just because I'm doing them in order. It was 1999. And I also want to say as a tack onto this, one of the other movies that I was going to put on my list, but I didn't, again, because it's quite new, is also an Eddie Murphy one called Dolomite Is My Name. But it's more of a biopic about oh my god, I can't think of his name. Sorry, I'm just going to click on it here. Give me a second. But it came out in 2019. Eddie Murphy got a lot of critical praise for it, and but again, I tried to stay away from movies that were more like real life biopics. Like, I know we want to do movies about movies, but I didn't want to do a movie about movies where it was just following around a person who in real life was in the film industry. Rudy Ray Moore, that's his name. Eddie Murphy played Rudy Ray Moore, who played the character Dolomite. So it's sort of an honorable mention to tack onto my Bowfinger pick. So anyway, what's your number one, Chris?
So my number one, I'm going back to TV on this one. And this is actually a very special film. It's one of my favorite movies that came out of the 80s. And it's my favorite year from 1982. So this pick, I think, is a little bit polarizing, like a few of my picks tonight here, actually, come to think of it. But I know people that love this movie, like me, and I know people that don't like it at all. I remember I had my wife watch this back years ago. We were just first dating, and she hated it. I love this movie. I think it's very special. It's a very special film. So it's about a behind the scenes look at a TV show back in the 50s. Okay. It's basically this thinly veiled parody of Your Show of Shows with Sid Caesar. Like in the movie, the character's name is King Kaiser, Okay. But the story centers around Benjamin Stone. And it's this guy who's a writer on the show, played by Mark Lynn Baker. Do you remember Cousin Larry from Perfect Strangers?
Yes. I just saw him this week, and he's in the new She-Hulk show on Marvel.
Yeah, I believe he was also in Succession recently too. So anyway, he's a writer on this show, and it's basically like a weekly sketch show, kind of like the SNL of the 50s. Okay. So Benji Stone is his character, and he's a writer on here, but his idol is the movie star Alan Swan, played by Peter O'Toole, in the best performance of his career. And let me tell you, that's saying something, because the guy was Lawrence of freaking Arabia, right? Mm-hmm. But Peter O'Toole basically plays Errol Flynn, kind of in this movie. And so he's the guest star on the show that week. The problem is, he's this like raging alcoholic. He cannot stay sober. He can't show up on time. So they decide to dump him. And Benji Stone is like, that's my idol. So he's like, okay, listen, I promise, I'll babysit him all week, and I'll make sure he shows up on time and sober to every rehearsal and to the live show. And it is absolutely amazing. It's a look behind the scenes at this frantic live TV show. And it's also a look at what it's like when you meet your idols, and sometimes when they aren't what you think they are. And it kind of pulls down the curtain, not just on TV and how TV is made, but it also pulls back the curtain on your perception of actors and stars and things like that. And it's got amazing performances by everybody. It was directed by Richard Benjamin. His direction is fantastic, spot on direction. And like I say, the supporting cast, there's William Macy, there's Selma Diamond, Jessica Harper, Lainey Kazan is outstanding, George Weiner, they're all so good. But Peter O'Toole, like, he just steals the show. He should have won the Oscar for Best Actor that year. He lost to Ben Kingsley. He was nominated, but he lost to Ben Kingsley in Gandhi. And like, Ben Kingsley was like this white English guy playing this Indian Gandhi. Like, I don't know, Peter O'Toole should have won. Although he was also up against Dustin Hoffman for Tootsie. That was a really strong year for acting. Wow, that year. But my favorite year. It's just so good. It's one of my favorite movies from the 80s, and rightly so. It's a very heartwarming movie to me. So it is definitely my number one movie about movies or TV. So.
Wow. I've never seen it. I've never even heard of it, but you've sold me on it. If I can find a copy, I'll give it a watch. I'm just sort of looking through now. I'm not seeing it readily available on our streamers, unfortunately, but I'll keep my eye open for it.
Yeah, maybe I'll try and get us to like watch it sometime on the show here and do that. But it's something else. It really, really is something else. One of those, I think, hidden gems. But I mean, it was like critically acclaimed at the time. Like I say, it was nominated for Academy Awards and so on and so forth. But yeah, no, it was good. Okay, so that's our top 5 movies about movies or TV. So what do you say we now have some
fun with Caveman?
All right, Derek. So since we looked at movies that were about movies or TV, I decided I was going to go like full out on that. I'm going to go full card. I never go full card. But I just did like a total mashup of it all. And so what we're going to do is we're going to play a little game that I like to call Pick the Flick. Yeah, pick the flick. You get the synopsis, then pick the flick. You get the year, pick the flick. Okay, I'm going to give you the year and the synopsis, obviously. You can tell by the song. And you just have to guess the movie title. And the common thread is all of these movies were actually based on TV shows. Okay.
Movies based on TV shows.
Movies that were based on TV shows.
Okay.
So it was a TV show for years or whatever, and then they decided to make a movie about it. Could be years later, don't know. So I'm going to give you the year and the synopsis, okay? And then you guess it, all right? So these are easy. 1995, all right? The original 1970s TV family is now placed in the 90s, where they're even more square and out of place than ever.
Is that the Brady Bunch movie?
Yes. All right. 2008. A New York City writer on sex and love is finally getting married, but her 3 best girlfriends must console her after one of them inadvertently leads her fiancé to jilt her.
Wow. It's based on a TV show? I have no idea.
Sex and the City. Sex and the City.
Oh, right. That was a TV show before it was a movie. I guess because it was on HBO, it never occurred to me it was a TV show. Yeah. Okay. Good answer. Good question.
2003, an imprisoned drug kingpin offers a huge cash reward to anyone that can break him out of police custody, and only the LAPD's specialized team can prevent it.
Yeah. This was a fun one. SWAT.
Yes, based on a TV show from the 70s. Okay. 1998. I can't give you their names, so it's got to be 2 agents must fight the government in a conspiracy and find the truth about an alien colonization of Earth.
Oh, is it the X-Files movie, Fight the Future, I think it's called?
Yes. The synopsis originally said Mulder and Scully. I'm like, I give that.
I remember when that came out on video. I was working at Blockbuster.
Yeah. Okay, 2012. A pair of underachieving cops are sent back to a local high school to blend in and bring down a synthetic drug ring. Name the movie.
Way better than it had any right to be. 21 Jump Street.
Based on that Johnny Depp TV show that was back on Fox back in like 87 and 91. Okay, 1991, con artists plan to fleece an eccentric family using an accomplice who claims to be their long-lost uncle.
Wow. What was the year?
1991.
1991. It sounds familiar, but I don't know.
It's the Addams Family.
All right.
Based on the old black and white TV show with John Astin.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. 2005. Thinking he can overshadow an unknown actress in the part, an egocentric actor unknowingly gets a witch cast in an upcoming television remake of a classic sitcom.
Yeah, that was oh my God, I can picture the actor and the actress. It was Nicole Kidman and what the hell was it called? It's Samantha the Witch. It was Bewitched.
Yes, based on the Elizabeth Montgomery show.
Yeah,
from ABC.
Will Ferrell, that's the guy.
Yes.
I got him. I could picture him. I just couldn't think of his name.
All right, 2000. 3 women, detectives with a mysterious boss, retrieve stolen voice ID software using martial arts, tech skills, and sex appeal.
Yeah, it was Charlie's Angels.
All right. 2009. When an android replica of a boy is rejected by his aggrieved creator, he goes off to find his own identity in an adventure that would make him the greatest hero of his time.
Was that Astro Boy?
Based on that cartoon. Okay, last one. 1980. A week in the life of a game show host and creator who lives through a series of outrageous competitors, stressful situations, a nervous breakdown, and other comical characters involved in his life and work on the TV show.
From 1980?
1980.
No clue. No idea.
The Gong Show movie.
If you say so.
Chuck Barris. I remember him being out in the desert in that one. So, okay. You got a lot of them, though. You did pretty well.
That was it? Okay, yeah. I mean, the ones I missed were just shows, for the most part, were shows I didn't even know. So. Yeah.
And I mean, like, I tried to give you some, like, ones, like, that are not just from the 70s and 80s.
Yes.
You know,
I appreciate that.
So, okay, so next episode, it's time for a quote-unquote newer film. Because, we had our draft from the 80s, and we did the 80s movies, and now we did the tonight. So, time for a newer movie. So, since I don't watch anything past 1989, as we know, it's over to you, Derek, to pick a movie for us to watch and come back. We're going to review it next week. So what have you got for us?
So I decided that I want to go back to one of my favorite genres, which is science fiction. And I know you definitely have not seen this movie, but let me just set this up for you. You have seen the movie Groundhog Day, right? With Bill Murray?
Yes, I have.
Do you know the premise? Like, he just keeps repeating over and over?
Well, you know what? I tell you what. They should announce a sequel to Groundhog Day and then just re-release the original.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. I'd pay to see it. Mm-hmm. So the movie I'm going to get you to watch is from 2011, and it's called Source Code. It's yeah, I know you've never heard of it. It stars Jake Gyllenhaal and Vera Farmiga, Jeffrey Wright. You get a lot of people in this that you're like, oh, I totally recognize who that person is. And the idea is that it's this guy who is working for this government agency where he's got to relive 8 minutes of his life. Well, not even his life. He gets put in this thing where he has to relive the same 8 minutes over and over and over again because there's a bomb on a train that's going to go off. And every time he goes back to the beginning, he needs to do more investigation to try and figure out what happened and how could you have stopped this if you had a second chance to do it. And so you get this same scene of 8 minutes happening over and over and over again. And just like Groundhog Day, it becomes a very interesting exercise in creating the movie of how does the director show you the same scenes with the same actors saying the same dialogue, sitting in the same place on this train over and over again without you getting bored. And I really enjoy this movie. It's directed by Duncan Jones, who is the son of David Bowie, and who also directed a movie you and Yancey reviewed way back when that I know you did not like, called Moon. But this one I really enjoyed. I caught the last 10 minutes of it on cable like a month or two ago, and so I wrote it down as something I wanted you to watch. It is available on Netflix here in Canada. Okay. Source Code 2011 with Jake Gyllenhaal, directed by Duncan Jones. Give it a watch. come back next week. We'll talk all about it, and we'll take it from there.
We will watch Source Code. We will come back and review it. But until then, this is Chris McBrien on behalf of myself and Derek Myers saying thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations.
Thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World. You can contact Chris and Derek at popgoesyourworld.com. Please take a minute and review the podcast on iTunes or wherever you download and listen to the show.